Welcome to another AI Wisdom podcast with Peter Voss today with us. He is CEO, founder, and chief scientist at aigo.ai. You can find him there. He's currently in Austin, Texas. Lots of startups from there. A beautiful place in the world. And I'm glad to have him on. Podpire.com is sponsoring this podcast. That's my podcasting agency. If you want to start, scale, be invited to podcasts, find sponsors for podcasts, you can go to podpire.com for that. I use podcasts to network. I use podcasts to learn and even to grow my net worth because podcasts can generate leads and can generate clients. So podpire.com for that. Peter, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and about your startups.
Okay, yeah. So I started out as an electronics engineer and then fell in love with software, started a software company. That was quite successful. We went from the garage to 400 people, did an IPO. So that was very exciting. And it really, that success allowed me to start on the journey that I've been on now for the last 20 or so years, is to figure out how can we build true AI, machines that can think and reason and learn the way humans do, human level, full human level AI. And I spent several years just studying intelligence to really deeply understand what intelligence entails and to be able to build systems like that. And then in 2001, I started my first AI company to actually turn these ideas into prototypes and so on. 2002, got together with some other people, and three of us coined the term AGI, artificial general intelligence, which is quite nice to know now. It's quite widely used, and it's really to distinguish the kind of work we're doing in AGI from narrow AI, where you're just trying to solve one problem, or where there's a human in the loop, where it's just like a tool that a human uses. What we're interested in AGI is systems that are really autonomous, can learn by themselves, and they can operate in real time. They don't have to be trained for a day or a week or something, but they, like humans, we can, we have a conversation and we learn things immediately. So that's what I've been working on for the last 20 years. And my company commercializes a chatbot with a brain. And the brain is basically an AGI engine or proto AGI engine, because we're not yet at human level intelligence.
To me, and AGI, first, the word AGI causes problem to my brain because it's like artificial general intelligence. Shouldn't it be general artificial intelligence? It seems like it's said in the French way, but etymology apart, to me, AGI would be an AI god. That's how I view it. And even in the current state of things, it would be scary to have an agent in the wild with, I would say, even minimal intelligence. If my intelligence would be 9 or 9.5 on 10, and this thing would be 7 or 7.5 on 10, I think it's pretty scary what it could do, even with that quote unquote IQ, because it would be awake pretty much at every time of the day, and it would null scale, like it could do things at scale, while even if I'm quite smart, I cannot do things at scale. And if I would deploy an agent, it's pretty obvious, let's say for financial purposes, it's pretty obvious that it could reproduce. Obviously, I would need to give it access to my bank account, my credit cards, all my softwares. And it's pretty obvious to me that could produce millions in a couple of days. And eventually these would turn into billions until they break the market. Is that fanfare fantasy, or is that something realist with the technology that we have right now?
Yeah, I would say that's fantasy. And let me just say why we coined the term artificial general intelligence, because general intelligence, or little g in psychology, is really what the core factor of intelligence is. What is, the thing that makes humans intelligent, and that kind of correlates to IQ. And so it's for that reason that I actually thought that general intelligence, G from a psychological perspective, was kind of the right way to describe it. But yeah, the reason I think the scenario you describe is extremely unlikely is to do anything in the real world is actually very difficult. And AIs, as we see, or any programs, tend to just very quickly run into snags. They don't understand something, don't have common sense, don't have knowledge on something. They didn't, grow up in the world like we did, that we have a lifetime worth of understanding how the world functions, and AIs don't inherently have that. So, when you say godlike, I think that's a misnomer. AGI is, if godlike means it can solve any kind of problem, that's just not realistic, because problems in the real world are really, really hard. I mean, like making money on the stock exchange, or, for example, it's a chaotic system. It doesn't really matter how intelligent you are. I mean, you can avoid doing stupid things, and not losing money, but it actually requires a lot of expertise to know all the ins and outs of it, and a system would have to actually specifically learn those things. And it's definitely not godlike. I mean, when we have even human level or slightly above human level, there are so many problems that are just so incredibly hard to solve. I mean, take cancer, or aging, or trying to build batteries that are 10 times more efficient, pollution, climate change, and governance, how to actually run a society, how to manage a society, what legal systems you should have. These are incredibly complex things, and it will require a lot of AI. And it's not going to be an AI. I think there's another misconception that we'll have like one super brain. That's just not realistic. Intelligence doesn't really scale that way. If you need to reason things through, you're pursuing a particular path, a particular hypothesis. So in cancer research, for example, what you really want to do is you want to train up an AI to be a well-educated cancer researcher, that has like a human would be, PhD level. Then you make 1 million copies of that, and you have these million AI PhD level researchers chipping away at the problem of cancer. And so it's not that you're going to have this one AI that is good at cancer research and investing, and a good lawyer as well, and so on.
Godlike. Chat GPT would be godlike. Definitely. It replaced 80% of my team. I hear a lot of people saying it doesn't replace, it enhance. I call bullshit on that. Humans love playing songs that are nice to hear, but when it comes to making change and getting outside of their comfort zone, they're good at straying away from that as well. I think that ChatGPT was that turning point, and it's not the best argument there is, but yeah, with ChatGPT, you can produce copy, you can use it as a brain sparring partner. And even though its IQ, quote unquote, its quality is not too high, I think it's good enough to add humongous value. I do agree with your point that I still see humans, and especially the high performance one, as digging in the knowledge well and advancing the thought. I don't think AIs could do that, or very intelligent ones. But stock exchange, yes, extremely complex. But for example, my cold emailing agency, and that's an interesting topic, because there's a fine line between a good cold email and spam, right? But I think I could scale it even with the non-intelligent agents that I have right now. I think it's very much scalable until someone gets their hands on something similar. And I do think that if I would give my AI some objectives to make $1 million in one day, cold emailing people and saying that I could offer them my cold email service, it could do pretty fine. And the steps are not that complex. They were somewhat complex to be found, but now that it is found, I think I could get potentially dangerous with that and take a very large part of the market very quick. And hence, if I can do that in my field, I don't think it is far-fetched in other fields, just that the stock market is saturated. There's a lot of people in that market, and I think it wouldn't scale, or it would take incredible amounts of effort. I'd have to unite an Avengers teams like the OpenAI team did for Chat GPT to break it. But I think it could cause potential great disruptions in the economy in this current state of things and in many other fields. You agree with that?
No, Chat GPT. I mean, yes, of course, people can use it. I mean, people have tried to use Chat GPT to make money, and it's failed miserably on that. Um, but obviously, the humans using these kind of tools, if they use them smartly, like you mentioned, is to maybe promote your channel or do whatever. I'm sure people can find formulas, but it's really going to be the human ingenuity that figures out how to use Chat GPT. And you're not alone. I mean, then you're competing with, hundreds of thousands or millions of other people trying to do the same. Like people on TikTok do, they try and get mind share on that, and but they're competing with others. Now, could somebody have a breakthrough on that? Yeah, absolutely. But then other people would probably figure out how you did it. But Chat GPT and these large language models are actually extremely limited if you want to get specific things done. For one, they don't have memory. I mean, they cannot learn the word itself, GPT. G means generative. They make up stuff. That's why they make a lot of mistakes. P means they pre-trained. They are trained, $100 million to train it, and weeks or days or weeks or whatever. And they're based on transformer technology, but they cannot learn in real time. I just published a white paper where we did some benchmarking against that, and it just fails miserably. I mean, imagine hiring a human assistant, and they come and they can do Excel and they can do use other tools and so on. But then you tell them, hey, I've got a new business partner here. We're going to start a different kind of show. And, I just met another person that's really interesting. And then the next day, they won't remember anything that you told them. And that's basically how this GPT large language model technology is. And that's an inherent limitation on them. So we're going to really need different technology, and that's kind of the approach we've taken, is where you need to start with saying, what does intelligence require? Intelligence requires that you can learn and understand and reason in real time, and that's a very different approach. So and people like Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, have even said that this is not the path to AGI. We're already hitting the wall with that. Then we need something else. We need something better.
Do you think the memory problem is a hard problem to solve? And what about the hallucination problem?
Yeah, I think they're probably not solvable within within this approach at all. With using transformers. Now, people can make a lot of money and develop a lot of tools and products and so on that are amazing. I mean, clearly it's extremely valuable, but I don't believe that the problem of learning and hallucinations can be fixed. It's inherent in the way transformers work. I mean, you have all of the massive amount of information, and a lot of it is just bad information. There's no way the system can correct that, so it makes up stuff based on all the input that it has. I mean, that's what they're designed to do, to come up with the next word, and repeat that. And to learn in real time, it's, the technology just isn't designed for that. It requires millions of iterations to learn new things. And that's a bulk process. It's not a kind of a one-shot process.
Makes me admire my own brain. You have an incredible machine up there. Before I get to that question, is your thesis that OpenAI just assembled a bunch of very high IQ people, a bunch of brains, and that is the result of that much value on the other side?
Well, I mean, the breakthrough really happened more than 12 years ago with deep learning, which is sort of DeepMind, I think, pioneered that, where people basically finally figured out that if they had massive amounts of data, massive amounts of computing power, they could do some really interesting things with neural networks. And, because originally it was image recognition, which of course has been very useful for self-driving cars or attempts at self-driving cars. And so that industry has seen so much money being thrown at it that it's attracted a lot of very smart people. So they've tried different things over the years. And, one of the breakthroughs was the transformer architecture, which took deep learning to a whole new level, basically. So the transformer architecture was, basically, so a lot of smart people chipping away. But it's really along the same path. Basically, we've got a lot of data, we've got a lot of computing power. That's our hammer. So everything looks like a nail, so we'll try and do things with that. And absolutely, they've achieved a lot with that approach. But I don't think enough people have really sat back and said, what does intelligence really require? It's just, hey, we can make some money here, we can publish papers, we can beat benchmarks, and and that's good. I mean, let people do that. But I don't think from a theoretical point of view, people have really thought too deeply about it. And it's one of the things I analyzed in a white paper I published a few weeks ago called "Why Don't We Have AGI Yet?" And I think because machine learning, deep learning, and now generative AI have been so successful, they've sucked all of the oxygen out of the air and prevented other approaches from really being tried.
Interesting. How do you balance academia and business if the goal is experimentation at scale that leads to discovery? What's your balance? 20% academia, 80% real world experiment, and with a capitalism backend?
Well, I personally don't have an academic background, but if you're talking about, how much effort to put into theory and how much into sort of practical approaches, I think it iterates. I literally spent 5 years just reading up, studying, thinking things through to really deeply get the knowledge, get a foundational knowledge to try and come up with the right kind of design. But then it was very much a few years of experimentation and say, okay, I've got these ideas, I've got these theories, but we also have to make them work in the real world. You have to be able to have results. And then we decided to commercialize this technology, and that gives you a very valuable reality check, because your theory might sound very good, but when you actually test it against the real world, you sometimes get a shock as to what the holes you have in your theory. So I think iterating between the two makes a lot of sense, and I think it's extremely valuable to have people working in the field who can both think theoretically about things, but also have the practical engineering knowledge to implement and to understand what the limitations in implementation are.
And how do you get that theory in? Reading, discussing with peers or folks like me on podcasts? How do you grow your neuron cells on that level?
I mean, these days it's, become a lot easier with internet. You can basically find special interest groups and people who discuss it. For myself, I also, just the people I employed in the company, we would brainstorm things, and just wherever I found people who have share the interest. So it's a combination of reading a lot of stuff, thinking about it, discussing it with other people to try and fine tune the theory.
And then the practice, how do you put your theories to the test? For example, I'm product market fit obsessed, and I use cold email to try new business ideas on new market segments in real time every day. And I wake up the next day and I suspect that my hypotheses were right and wrong. I analyze a lot. What is your tool on your side to do that at scale?
Yeah, so we work with large companies, large enterprise companies, so they expect to have a fairly bulletproof industrial grade system, which is not something you can just snap your fingers and have. So we needed to invest several years to build this industrial strength system to provide high quality service or high quality technology to our customers. And for that, you really have to commit yourself to a particular market in that. And of course, you have to be alert and say, is there good product market fit? You know, do you need to pivot? Do you need to adjust it and so on? And, you know, we found there is a very good market for our product in call center automation. It's a huge market, and you know, people struggle to find staff for call centers. I mean, especially after COVID, now it's become worse. To find people, to train them, and to keep them has become really, really hard. So that's a very obvious market for us as we are continuing to make our system smarter and smarter, so we can cover a wider range of tasks.
If I'm the evil supervillain that will create AGI, what would be the step by step to get there?
Well, I question the assumption there that you have to be a evil.
Yeah, it was ironic. It would be for good, obviously.
Yeah. Well, it's, you know, it's a big debate, and I personally believe that AGI will be extremely good for humanity, that it'll help us flourish, it'll help us solve a lot of the problems that we have. So, I mean, the path to achieve it is exactly what we are trying to do. I mean, that's my best guess, because we're putting all of our money and effort behind that. Now, where Chat GPT is actually helping us in this is not the technology as such, because, as I said, that is sort of inherently doesn't lend itself to the kind of fluid intelligence that you need. But where Chat GPT and large language models really help us, previously it was always very daunting for us to figure out how can we give our system all of the world knowledge that it needs to have. And we can now set up, and we're busy setting up a training curriculum where our system can get a lot of world knowledge by basically carefully asking these LLMs questions about different topics, cross-checking, cross-validating them, you know, with other databases and so on. So the training process to give the system general knowledge can be much more automated and much less expensive than it would was previously. So, you know, that's our approach, is to basically continue scaling up our system to increase its IQ until we get to human level. I don't know of a better approach.
I think laws of physically speaking, brains and AGI would be somewhat similar. That's another debate. But my point is that yesterday I wrote on my Twitter that a lot of information from gurus that I followed out there was crap. Every time I tried to follow, I mean, I test a lot, so like I'm safe on that level, but most are not. They don't have the experimenter mindset that I have, and they stay forever stuck, whether it's in business, whether it's in relationship, whether it's in happiness. Me, I test constantly, but a lot of time when I test out the theories of these gurus, it's plain wrong. And I think AIs have the same problem. A lot of that information is wrong. It hasn't been tested scientifically at scale. I would certainly picture a startup that would do that. And we've seen like fact checks and so forth. And also defining the truth is really hard. I feel like every humans have their own subjective truth. It's the same when you observe, you know, atoms at a very near level in quantum physics, they move, you know, it's like everything seems to be somewhat subjective. So would that be the path to teach an AI like what is qualitative information and what is not, and to give it free reins to do testing at scale?
Well, of course, you want your AI to be as rational and as possible, and by rationality is to get too close to the truth. I mean, truth is not inherently subjective. There are limits to what we can know, the degree of certainty that we can have. But reality is what it is, and we can basically learn. I don't know if you have an example of where you think it's particularly subjective.
Quantum physics. I checked the thing, it bends, you know, and some woo-woo folks would call that law of attraction. anything I set my mind to, I can do it, you know. I think I can bend the laws of physics. I mean, I trained my body to run 80 kilometers in one day. So, and I mean, yeah, that is obviously very subjective as an example, but I think we're one with this reality. It's not two things. It's like one thing, whatever that means.
Yeah. No, I don't believe we can, that it's mind over matter, that we can break the laws of physics with our minds. We can't. I don't think there are any examples. Can't bend spoons or do stuff like it with our minds. I mean, that's trickery. You know, you can't just believe that you can run a marathon and run a marathon. You know, if you don't do the training, you're not going to be able to run it. Now, of course, if somebody's life depends on it, you know, you can achieve more than you would possibly have thought possible. You can extract a lot more out of your body, but you know, it's not overcoming the laws of physics. I don't think there are any scientifically validated examples. You know, in fact, I've been a member of the Skeptic Society for a long time, who've tested these claims of, you know, spoon bending or whatever, mind over matter, and they really just don't add up.
Yeah, that's quackery, obviously. Peter, I'd like a round two with you. That time 1 hour, because we have way more to cover. Where can people find out more about you until then?
Yeah, so very easy, igo.ai, aigo.ai. And if you want to email me, it's peter@igo. I'm on Twitter, LinkedIn, and there's a lot of information on our website, links to articles and videos of what our technology does. And so, yeah, it's easy to get hold of me.
And that was another AI Wisdom podcast with legend Peter Voss.